The story does not begin with blood, nor with fear, nor even with a crime. It begins with a face. A face the internet couldn't quite place. Too smooth to be real, too practiced to be genuine, too bright to belong to someone who wanted nothing more than to be adored. A face that belonged to a man named Luka Magnotta, though he had once gone by other names, and would later become known by one that chilled every person who read it. But before that, he was simply a man who walked into the world with a camera in hand and a hunger for attention. The world didn't know him yet, not truly. But he knew the world. And he wanted it to stare at him. Always. In the colder corners of the internet, places where curiosity mixed with boredom, people began to notice something strange. Anonymous accounts uploaded glossy photographs of a man who always looked camera-ready. Jaw angled, lips parted slightly, eyes smoldering with a kind of manufactured loneliness. He posted glamour shots as if he was already famous. He edited his pictures like someone afraid to be seen without a mask. He used online forums like stages. He flaunted his reflections like mirrors that followed him everywhere. Some said he was beautiful. Some said he was unsettling. Most agreed he wanted to be watched. But the truth was far darker. Luka Magnotta wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing validation, any kind, even the terrifying kind. And the internet, unaware of the storm brewing behind those carefully crafted photos, gave him just enough attention to keep the fire burning. Luka grew more frantic as months passed. His posts became stranger. His usernames multiplied like shadows, each version of himself slightly different but always hungry. He could create rumors about himself and then argue with them using other accounts. He wrote praises about himself as if he were an unseen fan. He answered them as Luka, thanking himself. He created an audience, one that was made of his own reflections. But reflections can't satisfy a man who wants to be real. He needed more eyes, more reactions, more strangers whispering his name into the void. And slowly, like a breeze at the edge of a closed door, people began to sense something wrong. Although they couldn't say what. While the world saw a man posing and smiling, a certain group of online watchers, people who spent hours studying strange internet behavior, began to notice something sharper beneath the surface. They saw that Luka's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. They noticed the forced angles, the desperate attempts at glamour. They noticed he wrote about being stalked, about fans chasing him, about rumors of him dating celebrities. But none of it was real. Luka Magnotta manufactured drama the way some people breathe. And he fed on the attention it got him. If he posted a rumor that he was being followed, he would later appear online to deny it, pretending to be someone else. Every conversation about him was usually started by him. Every thread about him began with his own fingertips on his own keyboard. Every echo came from his own voice. But an echo is a lonely thing. And Luka Magnotta hated loneliness more than anything. He needed to be witnessed. Not liked. Not respected. Not understood. Witnessed. Even if the witnessing would eventually come with horror. The beginning of the darker turn was quiet at first. A small video. A strange post. A sudden pocket of fear growing in a corner of the internet. People whispered that Luka had crossed a line. Others believed the video wasn't real. Some were too afraid to watch, while others couldn't look away. In the shadows of online forums, a small but determined group formed. A group that became known simply as internet sleuths. They didn't know Luka personally, but they knew something terrible was forming around him. Their instincts prickled. Their stomachs twisted. Their nights grew restless. They sensed a danger that felt like a slow fog crawling across a city, silent, invisible, and creeping towards something they couldn't yet name. While the internet murmured, Luka strutted through his life like a ghost wearing expensive clothes. He walked into grocery stores with sunglasses on even at night. He wore designer jackets that weren't truly designer. He changed his hair as often as he changed his usernames. He tried to look like someone who belonged in movies, even though he lived alone in cramped apartments with peeling wallpaper and buzzing lights. His neighbors barely knew him, but they remembered something unsettling. He didn't walk. He glided. He didn't smile. He performed a smile. He didn't talk. He monologued. Even his silence felt rehearsed. And when he did speak, his voice carried a strange, fragile sweetness. Gentle, almost whisper-soft, like someone telling a bedtime story with a knife hidden under the pillow. There was always a tremor underneath it. A tremor that suggested the story could turn dark at any moment. The sleuths watching him online became more vocal. They shared screenshots, compared writing styles, connected accounts, dug into timelines. They weren't trying to chase him. They were trying to understand him, trying to prevent something they feared but couldn't yet describe. But Luka was watching them too. He saw their threats. He read their warnings. He tracked every comment about him. And something inside him twisted with a mixture of excitement and fury. They were watching. Finally watching. They were afraid. Finally afraid. He felt power, not the kind he had pretended to have, but a real power that curled around him like smoke. These strangers, these faceless names behind keyboards, had become his audience. And Luka Magnotta never wanted to lose an audience. He moved to another city. Then another. Then another. Always avoiding, yet always hoping someone would follow. He used internet cafes like confession booths. He left traces of himself wherever he went, half intentional, half accidental. He crafted hints the way a magician plants clues before revealing a trick. He wasn't hiding. He was preparing. Preparing for the moment when the whole world would finally look at him with wide, terrified eyes. In Montreal, he found a place where he could sink into anonymity but still stand on the edge of attention. His building was old, its hallways dim and echoing. Neighbors rarely spoke to each other. The doors were thin. The walls were colder than the winter outside. It was perfect for someone who craved attention yet lived like a phantom. He settled into the apartment with a chilling sense of purpose, though no one around him knew what lived behind his door. But they felt something. One neighbor said the hallway always felt colder near his unit. Another heard something like muffled music late at night, even though the volume was low. A third claimed that the shadows near his door stretched longer than they should have. Was it true? Or did fear color memory? No one can say. But unease leaves fingerprints on memory, and Luka had begun leaving fingerprints everywhere. By now the online sleuths were sounding alarms louder than ever. They had pieced together more than Luka intended. They predicted something terrible, something catastrophic, something that would involve not just the internet but the real world, the world with real consequences. Their warnings spread across forums, creating ripples that disturbed thousands of unsuspecting readers. People whispered Luka's name with growing dread. But fame, even dark fame, acted like a drug. And Luka inhaled deeply. He uploaded a new video, one that would make the sleuths panic. People who clicked it felt their stomachs drop. The footage was strange, eerie, and wrong in every way that a video could be wrong without showing anything explicitly violent. There were glimpses of movement. Dark shapes. A figure dressed with precision, moving with unnatural calm. Soft, eerie music playing behind it all. Music that made the video feel like a dream collapsing into a nightmare. The internet reacted instantly. People begged for the video to be taken down. Others demanded to know what Luka was doing. The sleuths declared that something terrible was coming. And Luka read every comment with a soft, trembling smile. He had wanted attention. Now he had it. He wasn't famous yet. But infamy was close, so close he could almost taste it. Luka began preparing for what he believed would be his masterpiece. He cleaned his apartment with obsessive care. He checked angles. He tested lighting. He studied the way shadows moved through the room. He rehearsed walking past his camera, as if practicing a scene in a film no one wanted to watch. He wanted his actions to be witnessed not just by a few but by the world. He convinced himself that he was the main character in a movie the world had ignored for too long. And when a man met Luka Magnotta in Montreal, an innocent meeting that should have led nowhere, he had no way of knowing he had stepped into a place already wired with dread. A place prepared by a person who wanted not companionship, but an audience. What happened next became one of the most disturbing internet crimes of the modern age. But this chapter does not describe that event. Instead, it describes the silence before the storm. The way online sleuths screamed into the void that something awful was coming. The way Luka rehearsed his movements in the dim, humming lights of his apartment. The way the internet felt a strange, creeping chill without knowing why. People sensed something was about to break. Like a glass tremoring on the edge of a table. Like curtains fluttering before a storm. Like a smile that hides a secret too heavy for the room. And Luka, sitting alone in front of his camera, looked into the lens with eyes that were no longer pretending. He whispered something no one heard. He pressed a button that glowed red. And the world shifted. Because what he did next would not just be recorded. It would be live-streamed. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. The night it happened, the air in Montreal felt strangely still, too still as if the city itself was holding its breath. Streetlights hummed quietly over empty sidewalks, and the wind slid sourly around corners, brushing against windows like a warning. In Luka Magnotta's dim apartment, where shadows stretched like solemn spectators, something more silent than the night was about to begin. For weeks Luka had prepared. 4 days he had rehearsed. 4 hours he had waited for darkness to settle in just right. He wanted the world to watch him. He wanted to be unforgettable. And when he finally set up the camera, adjusting it with careful, almost loving movements, he felt the thrill he had been chasing his entire life. His apartment was small, but tonight it behaved like a stage, still, cold, and expectant. Everything was arranged exactly the way he wanted. The furniture positioned just so, the curtains half drawn, the lights dimmed until the room looked like a place caught between dream and nightmare. Then he tapped the button. A small red glow blinked to life. The live stream had begun. For a moment nothing happened. The camera sat still, capturing the unsettling calm of the room. Those who stumbled upon the live stream felt an immediate chill, though they couldn't explain why. Many assumed it was a prank. Some thought it was an art piece. Others simply scrolled past, unaware of the horror that would ripple across the internet by morning. But the ones who didn't scroll past, the sleuths who had been tracking Luka for months, felt their stomachs twist the second they saw that empty, quiet frame. "This is it," one of them whispered into a group chat. "He's doing something," another typed with shaking fingers. "Get someone to stop him, now." But no one knew exactly where Luka was. And no one knew what they were supposed to stop. All they could do was watch. When Luka stepped into the frame, he moved slowly, like a performer entering a stage he had built with his own illusions. His expression was soft, almost serene, as if he were drifting through a dream. There was a sweetness to his face, a gentle calmness that would have looked harmless on anyone else. But on him, it felt like a mask stretched over something hollow. He didn't speak at first. He didn't smile. He simply looked into the camera with eyes that had finally found the audience he craved. For a long moment, he let silence do the talking. The internet watchers felt a pressure settle on their chests, a sensation like being trapped in a room where the air had turned too thick to breathe. Something terrible was unfolding, not through sound or overt violence, but through the quiet, chilling certainty that Luka Magnotta was finally showing the world exactly who he was. When the act was done, whatever dark, irreversible thing he had planned, Luka didn't run. He didn't erase the video. He didn't hide. Instead, he lingered before the camera, breathing steadily, almost peacefully, like someone admiring a finished painting. Then he ended the live stream with a gentle, casual movement. As if he had just closed a door. As if nothing extraordinary had happened at all. But the world had changed. Within minutes, the sleuths were sounding alarms across every platform they could reach. They contacted police. They sent links. They typed long, frantic messages explaining who Luka was, what they had tracked, what they feared. The internet pulsed with a kind of electric panic, and soon every corner of it buzzed with Luka Magnotta's name. Montreal police received dozens of warnings. Then hundreds. Then thousands. By sunrise, the live stream had been discussed by news outlets around the globe, though the footage itself was quickly removed. Its contents were whispered about, never shown. No major platform dared to host it. But the fear it caused spread like wildfire. What mattered most was this. A man had live-streamed his crime. And the world had watched. Luka, meanwhile, was already gone. He disappeared from Montreal before the sun fully rose. He moved like a shadow slipping through cracks. He boarded a bus, then a plane, then another plane. He drifted across borders with a careless calmness that unsettled even seasoned investigators. The world was chasing him now, finally. Police across countries had his name. Interpol listed him. Cities posted bulletins. News anchors spoke of him with urgency. And Luka watched it all unfold. In internet cafes across Europe, he sat at glowing screens reading news about himself, his face lit by the same artificial light he had always loved. He read the comments. He read the fear. He read the outrage. He drank it in like water. For the first time, he didn't have to write fake rumors about himself. He didn't have to create sock accounts to pretend he was famous. He didn't have to beg for attention. He had it. And he had gotten it the darkest way possible. What Luka didn't expect, however, was how relentless his pursuers would become. The same sleuths who had warned the world about him were now tracking his movements with an almost supernatural dedication. They identified places in the livestream background. They traced receipts. They compared hotel decor. They studied reflections in mirrors, tiles, and windows. Piece by piece they followed him across the world. Police closed in next. And in the quiet backroom of an internet cafe in Berlin, where Luka had once again sat reading about himself like a man admiring his own reflection, everything finally came to an end. When officers entered the cafe, Luka didn't run. He didn't scream. He didn't resist. He simply turned, looked at them with that same soft, uncanny calm, and let them place the cuffs on his wrists. His expression was almost peaceful, as if this too were part of the story he wanted told. As if being caught was just another scene in the movie of his life. The internet exploded with relief when the news broke. People cried. People cheered. People thanked the sleuths who had refused to give up. And across the world, a strange eerie silence followed the storm, like the hush after a nightmare from which everyone wakes at once. Luka Magnotta was no longer a ghost behind a camera. He was no longer a nameless face. He was no longer an online rumor. He was a criminal caught, charged, and locked away. The world moved on, slowly, cautiously. But the memory of the case remained. A reminder of how a camera can be a doorway. A reminder of how darkness can hide in the glow of a screen. A reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't found in shadows, but in the places where everyone can see them. Watching. Waiting. Smiling for the camera.